Hello, BookTube. A while ago, Christopher Russell, the cartoon hedgehog of this little corner of BookTube, made just one video. I'm sure he wasn't thinking it was anything epic, of just a few books that he wanted to talk about and recommend. And I have since run with that idea because that's all the push I need to talk about books with you. I love talking about books with you. It's all I do on this channel. And so I'm making another video with more Hedgehog book recommendations. Now, some of these I'm recommending more fully than others. None of them is garbage. But the first one, the first one comes close. The reason why it is exempt from the label of just out and out garbage is because it's pulp. It stems from the pulps, the pulp era. None of the writing of which was any good, but nevertheless, it almost gets a pass because that's part of what it is. That's part of the gimmick that it does. This is a Doc Savage novel. Doc Savage is a great pulp character. In many people's estimation, one of the two great pulp characters, him and the Shadow. And he is an anomaly. Clark Savage himself is an anomaly. He's gigantic. He's almost superhuman. He has trained himself from infancy to be almost superhuman. He isn't superhuman, but almost. In a way that Kenneth Robeson and that other writers have, in a way that writers have not really fully plumbed in most of his innumerable novels, unfortunately. He ends up in most of those novels being a side character to his crew of colorful assistants, or just another adventurer. Doc Savage is an adventurer, but he is there's an almost inhuman quality to him that is often relegated. It's often not present in the novels at all. And the novel that I have in mind is Brand of the Werewolf. This is a great dramatic cover representing something that I want to stress here in case you haven't read this book. Does not happen in the book. Doc Savage does not face a werewolf in this book. He faces a group of men who use the werewolf as their symbol. This does not happen. It's just a great cover. That's all. This involves Doc Savage and his men on a train where they are gassed with knockout gas, and they have to analyze that gas, and they're facing two different groups of bad guys who, I don't want to spoil anything about the book in case you happen to find this, may or may not be coordinated by one ultra bad guy. And it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, where Doc Savage himself, the oddness of him, is almost entirely lost in the course of the novel. I have often had my problems with the basic setup of Doc Savage. I've written about it, and I've queried about it over the years, why he needs this group of men, why he needs his band of weird assistants that each have a specialty, in each specialty that one of his men has, Doc Savage is better at that specialty than any of them. I mean, employees, yes, I understand why he has them, but why this team of second-rate all-stars? I've never understood that, and I don't know why so many of the Doc Savage novels don't lean into how extravagantly he has trained himself. How many languages does Doc Savage know? No one knows. How fast are his reflexes? Has he trained himself in breath exercises and whatnot to do things that look impossible? Yes, he has. So it'd be nice if we saw more of that. But, I mean, this is a page-turning book. It's dumb because the person who wrote this book did not plot it. And it's obvious to tell that from even a third of the way into the book. It's obvious to tell that the writer is working himself out of his plot tangles just 1 minute ahead of you. So, but still enjoyable and a classic example of pulp. If you want to know what pulp reading is like, read one of these Doc Savage novels. You'll get a perfect idea of what it's like. Then we have Andre Aciman, who is best known for his book Call Me By Your Name, about a gay love affair. It was made into a movie that parents unaccountably love. Parents, especially parents of young gay men, they unaccountably love that movie. I think probably the reason for it is because the father is given an all-knowing, wonderful, magical parent speech at the end of the movie. But I don't, even the movie, let alone the book, I don't understand why the parents of gay young men love that movie so much. First of all, the entire thing is an advertisement, and a very well paid advertisement. Check into the shell companies of the executive producers who donated money to the movie, especially large amounts of money. The whole thing is an advertisement for smoking. And the boy in the movie, his parents don't seem to think anything of it. Well, this is, you're a man and you're heartbroken, so of course you'll chain smoke. When they still have authority over him and should care that that's the dangerous thing. But there's also a predator in the movie. Anyway, Andre Aciman is known for that book, but he also wrote a novel about heterosexual love affair. The same kind of thing, where the one of the two characters is head over heels in love. And it's 8 White Nights, which is not only a very good, very evocative love story between a man and a woman, but is also a very evocative love letter to New York City. So very, very enjoyable. If you find this, or are wondering, okay, maybe you've read Call Me by Your Name, and maybe you made the mistake of reading its sequel, a sequel born by a movie success. But maybe you're wondering, is anything else that the author writes good? This is good. It's gimmicky. It's extremely heavy-handed, but you already know that about this author if you liked Call Me by Your Name. Then we have something by Howard Peckham. This is an older book. This is called The Colonial Wars, and it's a volume about the rough century in which Britain and France and Spain were all fighting on the American continent, ripping apart the beginning shapes of some colonies, pasting them back together, enlisting the violent help of the native tribes who were here before anyone else was, getting them to ally with themselves, getting them to ally with their old enemies, getting them to fight anything that moves, and arming everyone who looked like they had a chance to make any kind of trouble, and with different ministers having different aims at different times. So you end up with all sorts of little wars. The War of Spanish Succession reached these shores. King William's War, Queen Anne's War. It's a very complicated period. It's full of bloodshed, and Peckham does a great job in this book. There are two aspects to the story, and he does both of them justice, which is rare. Usually you get an author doing only one right. There's the military aspect, where you have to look at what's happening and describe the military encounters that were almost endless during the Colonial Wars period. But there's also the social aspect. What about the people involved? And can you see, genuinely, not in hindsight, can you see threading through these wars anything building towards their culmination in a war for American independence? Can you see that? I love this book. I wish that it was still in print. I wish I could find a hardcover copy. I had a hardcover copy once with this dust jacket. God knows where it is. It's gone for decades. Then we have Jonathan Gash. This is the first of his Lovejoy novels. I just recently finished reading all of the Nero Wolfe novels by Rex Stout, and that naturally put me in mind to add another crime-solving series. There's something about reading books in the order in which they were published, or crime-solving series. I'm still doing that with 2. But I thought, you've been doing it with 3 for months now. Maybe you want a third. So I went to the Judas Pair to see if maybe the Lovejoy novels would be that. Lovejoy himself is an antiquarian art collector who, in the art collecting world, this book is about a rare pair of dueling pistols. Hi. Hey, baby. What would you do if you saw a hedgehog? Would you go ballistic? Baby? Do you want to come down here and sit next to me? There you go. Oh, no, you want to go over to your chair directly. Good Lord, we don't see that often. This is the first Lovejoy novel, and I'm going to give it a reread. I read these as they were coming out in little green Penguin mass markets a million years ago. I remember liking the series, but not loving it, not being in love with it. It's entirely possible that the crime series that I want to reread to add to be my third series is D.L. and Pasco. That's entirely likely. But I'll give this a try. I remember it being very interesting. Lovejoy is a wisecracking ladies' man, a very interesting central character. So maybe I know the D.L.M. Pascal novels really well. Maybe it's time that I gave these a reread. But if you're going to reread Lovejoy, this is the first one. The Lovejoy novels aren't really structured so that you need to read them in order. So you don't really need to worry if it's not the one that comes to you in a library sale or whatever. And then we have Anthony Hayden Guest. This was... Anthony Hayden Guest was a professional partier. That was all that he did. He was an utter waste of skin. But this was the book that he was destined to write. He wrote The Last Party, which is about Studio 54 and the end of the 70s era of mega parties and everybody being blitzed out of their mind and sleeping with anything that moved. He was there at all of these things. You could be at any kind of a party anywhere in Manhattan, and you would look up and he would be there in the crowd. So he was destined to write this book. I don't know how many of the words in this book he actually wrote himself, but this is a wonderful, loving tribute to the party circuit years of the 70s. And especially to Studio 54, which was a place to go, a place to be seen. It was, I can attest, not a place that you would go if you wanted to sit on the sidelines and read, because the lighting was low, but also stroby, and there was all sorts of people wanting your attention. If you were a long-haired young guy, it was not a place to be if you wanted to read. But it's an excellent book. And here, the cover of this edition, this is not what the hardcover that I read looked like, but the cover of this edition has all the famous people who used to end up at Studio 54. Then we have World War II history, or really post-World War II history. This is by Jeffrey Diefendorf, and it's really good, if you can find a copy. It's called In the Wake of War. And it's about what was done to restructure Germany after the war, after World War II was over. So it's a part of the account of World War II that is often missing from the parts that are interested in hedgerow combat and, the Battle of the Bulge and whatnot. This is what happens after all of that is over. So how do you reconstitute local municipal governments? What do you do about the buildings? How do you clear away the rubble, and what do you rebuild? And how do you rebuild it? And who's paying for it all? And what do the people think in the meantime, when half the Allied occupation force doesn't trust that any German is not a Nazi sympathizer? This is the best account that I have ever read of those years. And I strongly recommend it. It's worth remembering when you're reading. When we read about World War II. We're used to reading about battles, but it's worth remembering that someone had to pick up the pieces when that was all over. And how would you do that? How do you go about doing that? A very, very good book. Okay, then we have an opulent masterpiece. Oh my! I don't know if this is still in print. I don't know what form it would be in. It's had a number of different editions. The one I'm going to show you, was a gigantic hardcover, 15-pound hardcover. There was a 2-volume. There was an earlier 1-volume, I think. This is Wonders of the Indian Wilderness. And in this form, this was the latest form that was printed in a 1-volume edition in America. It's huge and gigantic full-color pages that you turn to look at all of the artwork, all of the wildlife in India. There are tons of pictures in here. It's a big coffee table picture book. There's lots of pictures of architecture as well, including some ruined architecture. Gorgeous. Just a gorgeous book. The next best thing to going to India and trying to look at the wildlife yourself, and this was done years ago, so that wildlife, there's a lot less of it now. But this is not just India's signature animal, the tiger, but also lots of other animals. Tons and tons of bats, of course. India has lots and lots of species of bats. But poisonous snakes, spiders, panthers, hogs, giant herbivores, and also, in one tiny pocket of India, lions. Just a wonderful, wonderful book. Probably this volume, I'm pretty sure, has gone out of print. It would be too expensive to keep it in print, which means that probably it's collectible, so who knows what it would cost. I have no idea. But it's worth it if you want the ultimate visual reference of the natural world of India, which is opulent and incredible. Then we have Carl Safina. This is an author that I unabashedly love. I will read anything that he writes. He has almost never disappointed me. This is the book that was, I think, one of his first noticeable commercial successes, Song for the Blue Ocean. which is basically a gigantic travel log of his as he goes about the world's oceans and meets the people who fish on them, who research on them, who want to preserve them, who live by them. And he is such a wonderful, personable writer. He's just so wonderful on the page that you really don't, it really doesn't, in a way, matter. I mean, he's passionate about the ocean, passionate about ecology, but it really, in a way, doesn't matter what he's writing about, because you're going to fall in love with him, with his prose, regardless. Like, for instance, his latest book was an account of adopting an owl during COVID. Every bit as captivating as this book. But this has a grander canvas, and it gets him out and about to do something that he does really, really well, which is to talk to people and then capture those people in prose when he writes it up later. Just wonderful. As a book about the ocean, just wonderful. Then we have a bit of a hard sell. This is Nick Taylor. I had a hard time literally selling this to customers when it came out. I got the advanced copy of it. I read it. I was blown away by it. I was skeptical going in. I was blown away by it. And I reread the finished copy and tried my hardest to sell it to people. It also is basically a pre-World War II book. This is American made, and it's the story of the WPA, a program put forward by President Roosevelt to get Americans back to work, building roads, building dams, building bridges, repairing infrastructure, all that sort of thing. Thousands and thousands of Americans went to work this way, and they got a wage that was a living wage where they could hold their head up. They weren't waiting in line at a soup line anymore. They were working. It was good, honest work that needed to be done, and that did a lot of good, changed the face of the United States. And even so, even though I have nothing but respect for the WPA, I didn't think that anyone could make it a good story, and Nick Taylor does. This is actually really gripping as a story. He fills it with great insights and great character portraits. And for an American, if you are an American, chances are that your grandparents had their lives changed by the WPA in some way or other. So you will have, whether you know it or not, a connection. It's a book, a history of a federal work program, and yet it is great reading. It is fantastic reading. Then we have an older book. This is older military history and ancient biography. It is wonderful, though. Oh, my, and it is so masterful in terms of its details. This is Theodore Dodge, and this is his book on Hannibal. I strongly, strongly recommend this author's books on any ancient figure. His book on Julius Caesar. His book on Hannibal is probably his greatest book. It's of course not just a book about Hannibal, it's a book about the Second Punic War. And it breaks down that war in terms of everything that the best military historian, analyst mind at the time, this is a century ago, could think about the evidence that we have and the ground that you can go and look at as to what actually happened at Lake Trasimene or, at Zama. What actually happened? Where were the forces of both sides? How were they displayed? In addition to the character, he has everything about the ancient sources. He knows everything about them and knows how to parse them and how to make them convincing. This is just, it's marvelous. It really is. It's marvelous. It's older, but it's marvelous. And then we can finish up this barrage of Hedgehog book recommendations with a recommendation of a great historical novel. A great panoramic historical novel, The Agony and the Ecstasy by Irving Stone. This is his big fat novel of Michelangelo that tells in extremely minute detail every bit of Michelangelo's artistic career from when he was a budding, beautiful young apprentice to when he was a very old man. He lived longer than the average lifespan of Americans in 2025, creating art the whole time. Often contentiously, often butting heads with patrons, sometimes trying to fool them, sometimes trying to bilk them, but creating artwork that we consider to be absolutely foundational to our sense of art itself. Irving Stone takes one of two available approaches to writing a historical novel. Some of you will know it from, for instance, The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. And that is the encyclopedic, atmospheric approach, where he is giving you everything so that you can live in it and learn from it almost like it was a biography or even a textbook. In addition to the drama of Michelangelo, of course, the real drama of Michelangelo's love life is not in this book. Irving Stone could not bring himself to face what you read Michelangelo's writings is pretty obvious. But we do get a human element here, a couple of them, because Michelangelo had famously a long human element with his family, especially his father, that I think informs this panel from the Sistine Chapel ceiling. That's one way that you can do a historical novel. It was very popular when this book came out. That kind of panoramic approach was very popular. And it stayed popular for a long time, probably had its modern, or its 20th century apogee with James Michener, the Michener approach. But Ken Follett has done it as well. Plenty of other people do it. And then there's the other kind of historical fiction where you are anachronistically insightful about the past. You are drawing 20th century or 21st century psychological portraits. You're trying to make drama in the past rather than making the past the drama. Irving Stone doesn't do that. He doesn't do that in this book or any of his other novels. He does the first time. He does the panoramic, immersive approach. And it's marvelously done. As legions and legions of this book's fans will tell you. It's marvelously done. It's hard to imagine that anyone could read this book and not fall under its spell. That's hard to imagine. And that ends our Hedgehog book recommendations for today. So I'll wrap this up for now. Maybe we'll do more Hedgehog recommendations tomorrow. Who knows? Either way, I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.